Hi, I'm Cody. I'm the content director at Elevate My Brand, and this is EMBiz. And today I want to talk about how to write Google ad copy that converts. I have a couple of tips for you on how to focus your ad copy in a way that's going to drive conversions. So the first thing I want to say is to consider that the caveat is that this is an ad set, this is a search ad set that's really focused on driving conversions as opposed to brand awareness. So the first thing I want to say is to focus on the headlines. That is the first thing that people see. It's the bigger, bolder text before you get down to the slightly longer description below. And in the headlines, there are a couple of tips for how to make the most of those, specifically for conversions. First, use title case. So that may seem different from what you're used to, but studies have shown that that does tend to drive more attention and action. And that is just essentially making sure the first letter of every word is capitalized. That also makes it seem more important, so it draws attention. Two, include calls to action. You want to make sure that you are, again, intentionally encouraging action in order to drive conversions. So you don't want to make it seem like you're being too salesy or too forceful, but if you can tastefully and tactfully include a call to action in both the headline and then later in the description, that again just encourages action. And then also try your best to include some branded messaging and language in the headline. Again, a lot of the people who are going to be seeing this are going to be seeing and interacting with your brand for the first time. So if you put the company name or product or service name, or even just like tagline language, any way that you can incorporate it into the headline is going to be really good for not only driving action, but also driving brand awareness. You do have limited space in the headline, so I would say if you have to make a choice between like call to action or branded language, I would probably go with the call to action. But if you are a really good wordsmith, you can do all of the above, do all of the above in your headline. Then below that is the longer text, which is the description. And for that, I have a couple of tips as well. One, make sure that the keywords that are in the headlines match what's in your descriptions. So that sort of repetitious element of maybe it's a synonym, but if you use words that are in the headlines, you may want to replicate those in the descriptions just to drive home the point of your brand or the action you want them to take. Use around 12 different options. Always make sure you're testing as many descriptions as you can. We always recommend do 12, but I always say might as well do the max because the algorithm is going to determine which is the best one to show for a particular user. So I say go to the max, but definitely a minimum of 10 to 12 to test. And then also make sure that you're answering a specific search query. So think about the kinds of questions people might ask in order to get to the solution you're offering, and then rephrase that question into the answer directly into your description in your ad. The more specific you can get, both to the audience, to your brand, to the challenge, the better off that you will be in terms of converting to new customers and encouraging action. So that's how you want to make sure that your description is optimized for conversion. But then, as a bonus, there's also a couple of extensions you want to add to those ads that are driving conversions. And there's ad copy in a lot of those extensions that are going to give you opportunities to reach people, build brand awareness, etc. The first one is going to be those structured snippets. So being able to put things like specific features of your product or specific outcomes of your brand, things like that. Make sure that if you don't have space for certain critical keywords in the description or headline, put those into the structured snippet so that those can potentially show up depending on the people's search query. The second is going to be those site link extensions. You do have an opportunity to create 2 very short lines of copy beneath those. So if people are going to be very specific about a case study or wanting social proof, then when you create that site link extension for your case studies or testimonials page, use as a really clear language like we've talked about in the headlines and descriptions. Use some of that and use that real estate that's available to you in the site link extensions. And then last is promotion. So if you are running promotions, if you have a specific product, like a tangible good, then there's a lot of opportunity there to use specific search query-based keywords, branded language, and calls to action there as well. So those are some opportunities that you can use to optimize your Google search ad copy in order to drive conversions. And if you need support, of course, we're here to support you.